Hello and welcome to Dish Shelved with Adam White. Today I'm going to talk about Northlanders by Brian Wood and a host of artists. It's a comic that I heard about from David Wiley, a fellow booktuber. He rated it as his favorite book of last year, and I thought that was good enough for me to check it out. And I can see why he picked it. Um, it may not necessarily be my favorite book that I would have read last year, but I really, really enjoyed it. It started out with a two-part story about a kid and some invading, I guess they'd be Vikings. And it was a really interesting story, and I thought it was setting up the the whole story. I thought this was going to be the main character, this kid, because then he grows up towards the end. They skip ahead in time, and I thought it was going to be the main character, and I was really excited because I thought it was a really good story. Then it skips to another story, so it turns out it's an anthology series, which I didn't know. But it works for it. The next set of stories was the Shield Maidens, and some women take fighting into their own hands, and that was a really interesting. I think it was two parts too, and I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed the art on both of them. And then it cuts to a new story that is about a guy who had his inheritance and being in charge of this place and all his money and stuff taken by his uncle, and uh, he had come back to uh, reclaim his title there, and it was actually, I think, like maybe 8 parts. It was a pretty long story, and I didn't like it as much as I liked the first two stories. Which is a shame because there was a lot more space dedicated to it. I still enjoyed it, don't get me wrong, but it was just really, I felt it could have been shorter and he could have expanded a little bit on some of the other stories. But it was a good story and the art was pretty good. I didn't like it as well as I did the first two stories, art wise either, but I still enjoyed it. Then there was another couple of small stories. Uh, One of them was about a girl who was the only inheritor for her father, who is killed, and she takes up his mantle, even though everybody else is trying to get rid of her because she's just a girl. I thought that was a really strong story, and I really enjoyed it. I think it might only been one issue though, but it was a really good story. I think it was called Thor's Daughter. Um, it was a really good story, and the art was excellent in it. And then it ended with a another longer story about a guy who is taking on uh, all these perceived bad guys that have taken over the lands that he used to own, and he's got a daughter with him that he always protects, a younger daughter, and it actually turns out in an interesting way and that you didn't see coming. And it was really good too, though. I will say, let me see who some of the artists were here. Dean Ormstrom and Daniel Zazelj, I guess is how you pronounce it. They did the first two stories, and they were really, really good. Um, then there, Marion Churchland, I think, is the one that did Thor's Daughter. Uh, Really, really good. Uh, really good art on that one. Really enjoyed that one. Um, I wish I could show you some of the pages just because, but I can't because it's on my iPad. I downloaded it virtually because as you can tell by the heap behind me, don't have room for anything if I can avoid it. So, but anyway, it's all stories about Northlanders or Vikings or whatever you want to call them, and them coming in and looting and pillaging and just taking over places and taking slaves and all sorts of stuff like that. Uh, it it was really well done though. There's two more volumes, and I believe I will read both the other volumes eventually because I really did enjoy the stories in it. I hope maybe they come back to some of those earlier ones that um, because I thought just the all the shorter stories in it, the one or two issue stories, I thought were just absolutely outstanding. And the longer stories I liked, just not as well as I did the short ones. I don't think it was because they were short. I think it was just because that happened to have the more interesting characters in it. But really good comic. It was done, I think, by Vertigo, even though they don't call themselves Vertigo anymore. They call it Black Label. So this is probably done right before they switched over to Black Label because DC Comics was really stupid and decided not to use Vertigo anymore, which had been just a staple of DC Comics for decades and had produced really great work. And this is some more of that good work that Vertigo produced. And I really wish they would have kept Vertigo around, but DC hasn't made very smart decisions on much of anything lately. So, and they reboot their comics every 6 issues, and it just is a mess. This, though, is thankfully missing any of that because this is its own story. You can read it without having to read anything else. Uh, you just get in and get the stories and get out and can enjoy them, and they really were a good time. It's I've really enjoyed it as a comic. There's not been a lot of newer comics lately that I've enjoyed, but this one I have to say I enjoyed. I'm not sure exactly how old it is, but I really did enjoy this Northlanders story. I've always liked Brian Wood. I don't know how this one caught past my radar, mainly because I don't pay attention to much of the new stuff because it just is so poor, especially Marvel and DC. That's not to say there isn't anything good out there new. I'm having trouble finding it. But Northlanders was really good, really entertaining. Like I said, there's two more volumes and it collects the whole series. And it just is a really good story, especially if you like historical stuff, anything to do with Vikings, uh, which I do enjoy that stuff. So uh, definitely check it out. Again, thanks to David Wiley for pointing me in its direction. And I hope that you all will check it out. And thank you for hanging out with me this week. And I will see you again next week.